Let's go. Okay.
Sending data. YouTube's online.
It's fast. Good.
Facebook's online.
Good. Twitch took a long time last night. I don't know why. But you know, at the end of the day, nobody watches them. Oh, she's on. Sorry.
Are we Hi, welcome to our market update for what month are we in? It's July, isn't
July, halfway through the year. Halfway through the year.
Okay.
I did a market update last night saying I can't believe it's halfway through the year, but we are halfway through the year.
I'm Danny Fleming.
I'm Marcus Collins from the MA Properties Online team for a market update and more actually. It's not just a market update. There's actually a lot more. And there's an echo because Danny's left
I'm
the...
just going to stop it there.
There we go.
So we're the MA Properties Online team, and this is a Lexington market update. So who are we? This is the agents in the team. There's 7 agents in the team at the moment, and we have 5 full-time support folks. And you can see our dog Pseudo right in the middle there. He's a mascot. No, he actually has a role. Pseudo, the canine super sleuth.
More on that later.
Yeah.
I have the videos video all lined up. So
and
we'll
he's at the moment on the rug in front of us. So anyway, so what's the agenda for tonight? So the agenda is we want to talk about smart decisions, and that's really covering what's going on in the market at the moment with COVID-19. It's actually been really, really interesting. I know the whole COVID-19 thing isn't really, really interesting. It's quite devastating. But it's interesting what's going on with the market in relation to that. So, and what does selling in 2020 look like? If you're talking about buying, what does buying in 2020 look like? And what do we mean by virtual buying and selling? So now it's on to Marcus talking about...
You can do the first bit of it. Go for it.
Okay, smart decisions. It's characteristics of the local market. So we need to factor in this year. There's a couple of whole different things going on. There's a global recession happening because of COVID-19. And the Black Lives Matter movement has been, creating a lot of, well, we're already in angst because of COVID-19. With Black Lives Matter, it's an incredibly important topic and incredibly important, and we're so pleased to have that becoming front and center at the, now. But how is that impacting real estate? Now, when we talk about the global recession, back in 2019, we were talking about the fact that Lexington was going to have a softening market this year because of the perception that an economic downturn was coming in 2020 or 2021. Well, given COVID-19, that global recession, not just an economic downturn, it's a global recession that's kicking in. So how does that impact real estate? We're going to get into that.
Okay, so let's I'm on, down and dirty. Enough of the big picture, down and dirty. So this is a snapshot of the Lexington market at the end of 19, so in January of this year, if you like. Median sale price was about 1.2 million, and even though that's a piece of clip art, the direction of that arrow is very similar to what we've seen in terms of the house price market. The house price increase we've seen since 2005, which was just before the big crash in 2008 and 2009, even though that wasn't such a big deal for us. The difference between 2005 and 2019, about 66%. So a good increase in terms of prices. But let's take a look at why that is, and then we'll kind of follow that through with what did we anticipate to happen in 2020, and then what actually happened in 2020. So if we take a look at the inventory levels, this is a snapshot of how many homes there were available to buy on the first of the month. 2 areas of this are important or stick out, if you were, are obvious. The first one is what happened in the 2012-2013 timeframe. As you can see, the amount of available inventory dropped dramatically. What happened then was that the buyers literally, and you can see this in almost all towns, came out of the woodwork. They decided that the recession was behind them, that they felt confident to come into the market, and lo and behold, they came in to the market en masse. Lexington saw that big drop 2012 to 2013, Arlington, for example, was about 6 months ahead of Lexington, not by very much, but that drop occurred in all the major markets, and that's because the buyers had confidence, because they felt that the recession was behind them, job security was there, housing market was something that they wanted to jump into. We had low inventory levels then until last year, 2019. As you can see, there was a marked increase. Now, clearly not this marked, that marked between 12 and 13, but a definite increase in inventory in that 2019 timeframe. The reason for that was the thought, and Danny touched upon this a minute ago, the thought that there was going to be an economic correction sometime in 2020. We had the uncertainty, and still have the uncertainty, of the election coming along in about a few months' time. But there was that perception that something was going to happen with the housing market, potentially, some kind of correction. And so more sellers put their home on the market in 2019 than we had seen in 2018. And we can see that if we look at the number of home sales, because you can see a drop from 2015 through to 2018, and then a very slight rise in home sales in 2019. Now that drop is a consequence of sellers in Lexington thinking two things. First of all, it's kind of hard to buy my next home because I'm looking to buy in, for example, an Arlington, perhaps a Somerville, somewhere closer in, and it's tough to buy in those markets. And so they were struggling to buy their next home, the home to downsize to. As well as that, there was the perception, and in some instances the reality, certainly close around 2015, that there was price appreciation to be had in Lexington. So why don't I stay put, age in place, if you will, from 15, 16 and so on. But once we got to that 2018, and certainly the latter part of 18 and then into 2019, what if there's a housing correction? What if I've got the peak of the market? There are the house appreciation is stalled. Now's a good time to buy. And so we saw more homes coming on the market. But as you can see from this graph, we didn't necessarily see more homes selling. And you can see that with this graph. The orange line is the number of units that were listed. The blue line is the number of units that were sold. And if you look in that 2018 and 2019, they're beginning to diverge. The number of homes coming on the market was rising, yet the number of homes that were selling was static, essentially. It was a slight rise, but basically static. So what that meant is it led to excess inventory in the market. And that's why we saw the inventory levels increasing. An increase in the number of listings because sellers' perception that there was an economic downturn, a housing correction coming, yet the buyers, not being enough buyers in the market to soak up that excess inventory. So that was the picture at the end of 19. Median prices stalled somewhat. This is the median price graph for the last decade. As you can see, it rose until probably 2017, and it's been relatively static. In fact, that slight increase you see in 2019 was less about general price appreciation and more about a shift in the distribution of homes, so that a few more expensive homes sold, less expensive homes sold, and so it skewed even the median. The average was skewed even more, but that change in distribution skewed the median a little bit as well. That's why we saw that slight rise from 1.15 to 1.2 in the median. So not very much in the ground plan of things.
And that's reflected in the average sale price too, where people are thinking that the average sale prices in the town are actually going up. But when you look at them and compare them with the median sale price, that's what's happening to the average. It's because more expensive homes were selling than typical. And
it's kind of skewing that value, both median and average. Skews the average more than the median, but even the median was skewed somewhat. Why are we seeing what we're seeing? I mentioned before that one of the reasons that sellers were not selling was because they were struggling to buy their new home. The reason for that is to do with the demographics of the US. This is data from 2015. I'm assuming actually, that we will get some updated data sometime this year, perhaps early next year, given that we've just done the Census Bureau census. Two bumps on that graph, if you like. The way this is structured, I should tell you how it's structured. This is age going from 0 to 4, I think, all the way up to 80, 85 plus. And the length of the bar is how many people are in that age bracket. And you can see two obvious bumps, if you like. I'll highlight them there. The top bump is the baby boomers, those children born after World War II. Those people are now beginning to think about retirement and therefore beginning to think about downsizing. The lower yellow bar are the first-time home buyers, the millennials, first-time home buyers. And so if you think about a town like Arlington, I'll pick that because it's kind of the next one in, first-time home buyers find that very, very appealing because it's affordable. The average price in Arlington about 800,000, or median price of 800,000, median in Lexington about 1.2, so 400,000 difference, so it's more affordable. Close into Boston, vibrant town, good school system, begins to tick all the boxes. Those boxes are the same boxes that the downsizers are looking at. Close to Boston, close to where I am right now, good school system because that means I'll get price appreciation when I come to sell, and so on. So we find that both of those demographics are really fighting, for want of a better word, for the homes that are coming on the market. And that's why Arlington, for example, is much stronger than we see here in Lexington, because you've got two sets
in those
of
lower price points.
Lower price points.
Yeah.
Those two groups competing with to buy those homes. With for example, the average sale price to list price ratio, which is a key metric of buyer confidence, well over 100%. We're about 99 here in Lexington. So,
which is still pretty strong.
It is, but not as strong.
That's the average.
That's the average, not as strong. So that was where we were in January this year. And that's what, if you've read, or if you'd like to read, it's on our website too, of course.
And
the
we've got
review.
lots of hard copies, so
We
if you
do.
want a hard copy,
We have lots of hard copies because we haven't been able to get. We usually hand them out, but people have not really been wanting to do that. So
not wanting to grab things
at the moment.
Yeah.
So we have lots of those copies, but it's on our website too. But in January, we're talking about economic uncertainty. That was really the big talking point. This was why we were seeing that increase in inventory in 2019 in comparison to 2018. It was all about economic uncertainty. And the reason it's important to talk about this, and because in a moment I'm going to talk about COVID and what the impact that's been on the housing market. The way we see it today, we will be going back to the predictions and the situation that we found ourselves in January. The predictions we were making then will come to pass, if you like, as we come out of this at least come out of this as far as the housing market is concerned.
Yeah.
So in January we were talking about sellers, that we would see more sellers due to the economic uncertainty, pushing up inventory levels because the number of buyers in the market was relatively static. And so our prediction then is we would be tending to a more balanced market. That is, the number of buyers and sellers was kind of evenly pitched, perhaps a little bit in favor of the buyers because there was a little bit too much inventory. So that's kind of where we were, about a kind of balanced market. We saw that economic uncertainty in the short and medium term. So we have an election coming up in about a few months' time, and that in January was predicted to be a very uncertain time for us. I think it's fair to say, given what's played out in the last few months, that will still happen. Mortgage interest rates are really not a problem. We have a little more to talk about lending in a moment. And then price appreciation, relatively static for 2020. So that's January. Let's talk about
now. What's happening
now?
What's been going on?
So the one metric that we've been following, because it closely follows what's happening with COVID and the perception in the market, is the number of listings. And so it's very interesting to start comparing 2019 versus 2020. Although a little bit of a caveat as we do this comparison, we were predicting in January that we would see more homes come on the market in 2020 than in 2019. Remember, 2019 saw more homes coming on than 2018. So we were predicting more homes coming on in 2020 versus 2019. As you'll see, we're about at parity. And much of my comparison that I'll get to in a minute is about 2020 versus 19. So I'll talk a little more about that. But as I talk about 2020 compared to 2019, we were anticipating more homes coming on this year than we saw last year. So what does back to normal mean? Well, unlike many states, we do seem to be getting a much better handle on this pandemic. The top line is the number of tests that we're doing, still relatively high. The bottom orange bar is the number of cases, confirmed cases. Kind of hit the peak, and now we've come all the way down, similar to what we're seeing in Europe. Similar, of course, with the number of fatalities. That's come down. In fact, a couple of days ago, there were actually 0 fatalities.
Yeah,
and so we seem to have got a good handle on this pandemic. Clearly, that's not the case in the rest of the United States, but let's focus on Massachusetts because that's where we are for now anyway. We seem to have a handle on this, and with the fact that we seem to have a handle on it, what that implies is there's an awful lot of confidence in the market. So let's take a quick look at listings, shall we? So in this case, the blue bars are the listings in 2019. So this is the total number of listings, not sales, listings. Blue bar is 2019, orange bar is 2020. So as you can see, in January and February, even though that seems like a long time ago, actually in early March too, the mild winter meant that we had actually more homes come on the market in February this year than came on the market last year. But as you can see, once we get to March, I split March into the first 2 weeks and the second 2 weeks. Once we got to the second 2 weeks, the number of listings dropped off. About 50% is what we would have expected had we had the same numbers as 19.
Well, our team, for instance, we stopped bringing homes on the market the last weekend in March. We felt that the buyers were hunkering down. It was starting to feel a little dangerous. Nobody was knowing what was going on. So we talked to sellers who were planning on coming on in April. And we just sort of said, you know what, we need to hold. We need to hold. Let's not come on. Let's wait until the buyer activity kicks in again, because at the moment, coming on now just didn't make sense. So, and I think that's what happened with a lot of other homes.
The big question for us was not whether we'd get more listings in April. We anticipated far less. We predicted far less. The big question for us was what would happen in May. As it transpired, certainly the second half of May, perhaps even the last 3 weeks of May, confidence came back, buyer confidence came back, and so we saw almost the same number of listings come on in May 2020 as we saw in 2019. We were just like 5 or so below.
And it was interesting too, because there wasn't a correlation between the stay-at-home advisory kicking in and the buyer activity back in March. There really wasn't any correlation between stay-at-home advisory and the buyers stopping, because the buyers kept going for another couple of weeks after the advisory. So we sort of had a pretty good, we were thinking there probably isn't a correlation for when that stay-at-home advisory is lifted and the buyer activity resuming. So we were sort of watching this on a day-to-day basis, waiting to see when we saw the buyer activity start. And we saw it the first weekend, pretty well the first weekend in May. And so we started bringing homes on the market quite quickly then.
As we predicted, if you've watched any of our seminars before, we predicted June would be a bumper month. There will be a lot of homes coming on the market, and you can see it here. We soaked up a lot of that inventory in March, which is in May, excuse me, but a lot of excess got consumed as well in June. So we had more homes come on the market June 2020 than June 2019. The sum total of this is we're about 20 to 25 listings behind where we would expect to be in if we'd had parity with 2019. Now, as I said before, in January, because of the conditions and what we'd seen in 2019 and in 18, we expected many more homes to come on the market in 2020 versus 2019. So if you look at this comparison, you know, the implicit assumption is you were expecting the same number in 2019 as 2020. No, we weren't. We were expecting more. So we have got a net reduction in the number of listings than what we anticipated. What that means, of course, is that those are many of those buyers are the ones that are thinking, maybe sellers should be thinking not 2020, maybe I should wait till 2021.
Yeah.
Another interesting way to show this graph was as a kind of cumulative, if you like. The blue line is 2019 and the orange line is 2020. Where they cross, where you see that kind of slowing down of the curve, I can show my cursor just here, that's second half of March. We're pretty close, as you can see, to where we would expect to be if we follow 2019. That flattening, somebody asked me about that flattening the other day. That flattening in this week is July the 4th. So you can expect a relatively large number of homes to come on the market this week.
Weekend,
In fact, we have 4 this week.
3 or 4?
4 this week coming on. That gives you an indication of more homes will come on this month, this week, and therefore this month. And I think we'll be at parity with 2019, perhaps even exceed it slightly within the next couple of weeks or so, which is good news. So it's almost back to normal. And you can see that as I think about the projection of how I think the number of listings is going to play out moving forward. I've taken that 20 to 25 listings that we are behind and kind of laid it across, adding really to what we expect in 19 in that July, August, and perhaps September. But as you can see, it kind of very quickly we get to business as usual. This kind of slightly orange, but slightly less orange color are the predictions that we're making. As you can see, by the time we get to September and on, it's business as usual, which is what I said at the beginning, that, guess what? The predictions we made in the early part of 20, will begin to play out as we get into that kind of second half, certainly Q4 of 2020. So that's why I kind of talked a little bit before about our predictions for January. We've shown you this graph before. It's the number of the way.
Maybe not the people who are on tonight.
Maybe not. I've shown this so many times. Martini Monday. I mean, you name it. I've said
a couple of times.
So what this shows you is how showings changed in 2020
dramatically.
And this kind of lays really the foundation for much of the rest of the presentation. We had 2 phases as we saw it, as we called them, a lockdown, where we were indeed in lockdown, versus where buyer confidence returned. And there's that transition period. May, June, we were saying, realistically, it was more like May than June. We're kind of well into it now. Certainly during May, that's when it happened. What's happened is open houses dropped off. The last open houses that we saw really were in late March.
Second week in March,
Yeah.
I think.
There was nothing. They are beginning to pick up.
But we should explain that when they dropped off, the number of private showings that we were having on homes skyrocketed. So the buyers were changing their viewing profile, if you like. Typically, before in the past, they were coming to open houses. And then when they started getting less comfortable being at an open house with other people around, they stopped coming to the open houses and they started making private showings with their agents instead. And that's still the case now.
True. I'm gonna just correct you slightly.
Oh, what did I say?
You said the number of private showings increased dramatically. What increased dramatically was the number of virtual showings.
Yes.
And so what buyers did is they said, you know what, I'm not really comfortable going into homes to view them unless I really think it's a home for me. And so the number of virtual showings skyrocketed, and the number of private showings less than we would ordinarily expect, because many people will go in and they just have a look. Open houses especially, in many cases something of a social activity, but they're gone, and people would look doing much more when it came to virtual, 3D tours, videos, you name it. Then when they're comfortable going into a home, then they would make the private showings. As that buyer confidence returned, so the number of people making private showings increased as they became much more comfortable going into a home.
Because the showings were not overlapping, and it was just them and their agents in the home and that type of thing. So yes.
Open houses have returned, although they're definitely not the open houses of old, where we might have, 50 people, 50 groups through an open house on a Saturday. Not uncommon to have that. We certainly had that in January and February this year. 50 groups on a Saturday and 50 groups on a Sunday. Now it's very controlled. A little bit of a challenge for us is that if the numbers of people who want to go to open houses increases, and if we have to gate them going through, giving them a time slot becomes a little bit of a frustration factor for the buyers who potentially can't get in at the open house, potentially have to wait to get into the home. So even though we've said open houses are returning, they're not the open houses that we expected previously. They're just not. They're much more controlled, just not the free-for-all that you've seen in the past.
But there is far more risk associated with the open houses today of turning the buyers off, and we're just not seeing the numbers. We have been trialling open houses now for probably the last 6 to 7 weeks, and we're just not getting people coming. We will occasionally get some people come, but the challenge is, and we've got a few buyers agents in the team, and they've been going out with their buyers, going and seeing things, and they've reported back that there have been some open houses that they've gone to where there's heaps of people, and most of the buyers are all milling around outside waiting to get in, and a lot of them are then throwing their hands up in the air and saying, let's go, I'm sick of waiting. So what you have happened then is if a buyer turns up and they're fed up with waiting, they don't want to wait, they're going to leave and they're not going to consider the home again. So the danger of an open house is far more, it's
the risk outweighs the benefits.
The risk is way too high at the moment. Yeah.
So we're being very cautious with open houses for exactly that reason. There is a kind of tendency, hey, everybody's, let's do open houses. Why wouldn't we? There are some reasons to think again about open houses, and so we're watching this space right now. So let's try and look forward a little bit. There was this big question about, is it a U-shaped, is it V-shaped? I think we're beginning to get a better handle on how it's going to play out. This was a graph that I think McKinsey put together, or graphic McKinsey put together. Was it going to be a V-shaped recession? In order for it to be a V-shaped recession, everything had to be right, essentially. We had to go in, do everything right, and then we would actually come out. Similar, I think, to the way Europe has kind of played out. That's clearly not the case. If you look at Arizona and Texas and California and other states, they're seeing now a surge in cases, potentially because they opened too soon. We in Massachusetts seem to have got it right. Fingers crossed that we continue on the path that we're on, and not necessarily fingers crossed. Hopefully we have the political will to make sure that that's actually the case. It does seem we do. So we're in a much better position, but still globally, it does seem that, or nationally, I guess I should say, it does seem that this is going to be a long drawn out process. It really isn't going to be kind of straight back in, and that's
well,
kind
what
of key.
staggered me was listening to a statistic just the other day that it took us 2 months to get 50,000 confirmed cases. 2 months at the beginning to get 50,000, and now we're seeing them on a daily basis, and that's just the other day they were saying the number of confirmed cases in Arizona was 101,000. It's about the same size as Massachusetts, population-wise, about 7 million people. We have had a total 104,000, but we're having 100, 150 cases a day. Clearly, Arizona's having those in the thousands, and so many of those states are going to see their numbers ramp up quite quickly. That's the national picture. Real estate, of course, is local. All real estate is local, and so we do seem to be through this, and certainly the housing market very much returning to business as usual. Perhaps in Q3, certainly in Q4, unless something else goes wrong. So we should be mindful, though, that it's still many people are working from home. Many people are still furloughed, potentially laid off. There's certainly this prospect that as we get back, companies will bring their people back on, but they won't bring as many as they had on previously. So there's still a great deal of uncertainty in the market. So we'll see how this kind of plays out for us. In terms of lending seems to be, with one exception which we'll talk about in a minute, seems to be on course for the same as we saw in 19. There's some talk of higher credit scores, perhaps more scrutiny of loan to value and so on. The big issue we've seen, and we'll talk more about this for our buyers, is that many of the appraisers are doing drive-by appraisals. They're not actually going into the home. And as we've been saying for a few months, we thought that had the potential to lead to lower appraisals, and therefore the issue of lower appraisals and how do you get through your mortgage contingency.
That's turned out now to be the case. And it really, I think, is a consequence of these drive-by appraisals where realistically it's not, in many cases, it's not even a drive-by, they just do it at a desk. They're not talking to the listing agent. They're not finding out how many offers there were on homes. Homes priced well in Lexington are getting multiple offers, and that inevitably pulls the price higher. The appraisers are not getting that information, and so we are finding a few situations where the appraisal number is coming in lower than the offer price. So that's something to be aware of, and certainly we're cautioning our buyers in terms of that. Is you can bid the price higher, but be cautious. It may not appraise for that number just because of the way the appraisal process is working.
And there's ways to address that in the offers as well. So that's having a buyer's agent that understands what they need to include in the offer to cater to that.
Right. Interesting. The initial, it seems again like a long time ago. Mid-February was when the stock market reacted to COVID. We got the lockdown on the end of March, 27th, I think it was, 26th, 27th. So, about 6 weeks later on. That initial stock market crash, if you can call it that, did affect the buyers. That affected less so the first-time home buyers, more so the buyers of higher priced homes that potentially had assets within the stock market, and they saw the value of those assets decrease by 20, 30, 40% potentially.
Even just our team had a couple of these fall apart at that time as well.
Right,
yeah.
In that kind of mid-February timeframe. The lockdown kicked in mid-March, and then it had a much wider impact. It impacted both the higher priced homes and the lower priced homes as well. That kind of mid-March. But by the time we got into May, so we saw that market go back, as we mentioned before, the number of buyers and sellers feeling confident enough to bring their home on the market, the number of buyers in the market, they both started to increase. But, there's kind of a bit of a dichotomy here because, there's this, what should I do? Do I wait until 2021? We were hearing this conversation, and we still do to some extent. Buyers asking the question, maybe I should put off buying it till 2021, maybe prices will be lower. And then on the seller side, we saw two sets of pictures. Maybe I should wait till 2021 because houses prices will be higher, or should I delay until 2021? They may even be lower, and I think time will tell. But
I was hearing from different sellers, and I was hearing exactly the opposite, within a couple of hours of each other. So, there really was a lot of confusion as to whether people should come on the market now or wait until 2021, and there was no set answer for it.
All right, I think we will clearly, as 2020 progresses, we'll get a much clearer picture in terms of what the impact will be on 2021. My prediction today, and I guess I'm brave giving a prediction today, given where we are, but assuming we carry on with kind of business as usual in Q3 and Q4, there are a large number of homes that need to come on the market, and they are delayed in 2020 to 2021. What that means is we will see more sellers in the market in 2021. What we saw in 2019 and in 2020, about the same number of sales. So we've got static number of buyers, more sellers, potentially even more sellers coming on in 2021. And so, our predictions of tending to a balanced market, I think, will play out, perhaps even a soft buyer's market. Time will tell on that one. But I do think we will see more homes coming on the market in 2021 than we saw this month. Back to that kind of, I think I'll delay just because if I don't need to sell, maybe I should delay anyway. So.
Well, it's also the concern that people have about the fact that, most people don't bring their home on the market in August, and by about mid-July, they're starting to slow down bringing their home on the market because of the fact that in a typical year, you want to be in your new home before the school year starts, which is the end of August. So with the way the banks work, a mortgage can take 4 weeks or so at the quickest. So, by the time we're getting to about mid-July, end of July, people are starting to think, we better wait until next year because we've missed the buyers. We just don't know what this year's going to bring us because the whole seasonality of our selling a home has jumped out the window.
So
So
I think Our next seller seminar, our next seminar will be early August.
Yep.
5th.
Yep.
I won't guess the date. Early August. I think we'll have a better handle on quite what happened in July. As Danny said, we're already at the 7th. Mid-July is, guess what, a week away. So we'll be, begin to see that quite quickly, and that will give us a good handle on what the rest of the year will bring. Okay, enough of the numbers?
Yeah. So, well, people might like the numbers.
They might. I do. I know I do. But on to something completely different. Well, not quite completely different, but a little bit different.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about, what does selling in 2020 look like? How is it different to prior years and the way things are normally done? What does the new normal look like? So one of the things that we typically cover is when we talk about selling your home, there are 5 keys. The smart decisions, well, we've just addressed that. We've gone into what's going on with the market and things like that. Preparation, staging, marketing, and excellence through teamwork. So there are those 5 critical components. What's happening with the market now with each of those? So let's go first in general what's going on. So in general, there's no open houses. There are some open houses, I have to qualify that. There are some open houses. The risk to doing open houses is still too strong. Anything that we've seen, we're either seeing complete lots of people there and then people leaving in disgust and not going to come back to the house again, or we're having a home and there's really only 3 people that have come by and come to have a look, and their neighbours. It's because it really is what's going on now is that the serious buyers who are out there, they are checking the digital assets for a home. Whenever a home comes on the market, the buyers are still checking MLS 3 times a day, 4 times a day, that type of thing. When a home comes on the market and it's got those digital assets by a 3D tour, the video, lots of photos, floor plans, websites, all of those sorts of things, they can do a whole lot of investigating about the home without even leaving their seat. So they're able to identify, does this home work for me or not? And if it works for them, both from what's inside the home, the location of the home and the price of the home, that's when they'll make a private showing. So the private showings are absolutely key because they are serious buyers. We're typically finding, I don't know whether we should talk about this later, but we're typically finding a direct correlation between the number of views of the 3D tours, and we have all of this information on a real-time basis on a listing dashboard that we provide for a seller, where they can see as each hour goes by, or as each day goes by, how many people are viewing all of the digital assets that we have. But there's a direct correlation between the number of viewings of those and the number of private showings. And there's a direct correlation between the number of private showings and if we're going to get offers. So we give our sellers that advice before we even come on the market. Here's what we want to expect to see, so that by the time the Tuesday comes around when we're looking at offers, we'll have a pretty good idea whether we can expect some or whether the buyers just haven't responded to the price. But anyway, I digressed with that. So sorry, open houses.
You should compare that one thing, and I won't interrupt.
No, you can interrupt because I interrupt you all the time.
Yeah.
And I look at his face every so often when I'm interrupting. He's thinking, shut up, shut up, shut up. That's okay.
It's interesting.
Deal with it.
Yeah, I know. I have no option. What can I say?
Deal with it.
Yeah.
We're married, by the way.
Business partner and wife. To put the open houses numbers in perspective, I can think back to 5 Constitution here in Lexington. We sold in February sometime.
Yeah, that was.
We had 50 groups through the open house on the Saturday, and about 50 groups.
No, we had
100
about
in total.
100. No, we had about 100 on the Saturday, and I think about 50 on the Sunday. We'll have to agree to.
I don't know.
dispute
It
that.
doesn't matter actually. Either way,
Huge,
imagine
huge.
50, and we're restricting them. Even 100 is even worse. We're restricting them to 10 minutes each in the house. So 50 times 10, it just doesn't work, does it?
No.
And so if the buyers want to do open houses like we did before, it would be chaos actually. And so that's, just
So
to kind of put that
monitoring-
number in perspective, given what we
Yeah.
used to see going through an open house, it's dramatically less.
And
so it's
we
just
are
not business as usual.
monitoring it on a regular basis to see, because when the open houses start up again, where the buyers, that's the way they want to see a home and they're comfortable being in the home. Because don't forget, during open houses, you've got lots of buyers milling around a home all at the same time, and 6 feet distance, it's not going to happen. So there's challenges with that. But we started seeing middle of March, the buyers coming to open houses. In the last open houses we were doing, the middle of March, they weren't even picking up the physical feature sheets that we had. They didn't want to touch them. So we don't do physical feature sheets. We do still do feature sheets, but they're digital. They're online in a couple of different places, 3, 4 different places. Our marketing is all virtual. The video, 3D tour, website. We're finding great results with doing virtual open houses, where we live stream it, and typically on a Friday, but for each home it's on a different time. But what happens is we emulate what a buyer does when they go into an open house. We'll go and open all the closets, we'll go and look outside, we'll go and look down in the unfinished basement, we'll look in the unfinished attic. We do the sorts of things that a buyer would do if they were at an open house, and we're getting good amounts of views on those. Typically, Massachusetts is a voluntary disclosure state. You don't have to disclose in Massachusetts. We are finding, or we are recommending, that if sellers are comfortable filling in a seller's disclosure, now's probably the time to do it, because of the fact that in a normal market, the buyers might be able to see the home, a private showing on the Friday, and they might come back to the open house on the Saturday, and they might come back to the open house on the Sunday, they might have a pre-inspection happening on the Monday. They're in the home a lot over those 4 or 5 days, in a typical cycle where a home has been priced realistically. They don't have that sort of access anymore, and they're not comfortable with that sort of access. So having a seller's disclosure gives the buyers a little bit more of a warm and fuzzy feel. And what we were talking about before, the buyer, the viewing profile of the buyer is very much going from digital first and then going into private showings. And in general, closings are virtual. So that's from the perspective of what happens whether a home is vacant or occupied. These are the sorts of things that will occur. Now let's get into where we are now, the buyer confidence returns. We did have this done before about the during lockdown. How is this different for a vacant home versus an occupied home? Well, now we're not in the lockdown phase, so we removed that. Now we're in the buyer confidence returns phase. For a vacant home, it's pretty easy for a vacant home. The preparation, the contractors, they were screaming to get into it. They were desperately looking for work in vacant homes because the work that they normally would have done in this period of time, sellers, owners, anyone didn't want strangers in their homes, so they were really short of work. So when we had a vacant home that needed some work, they were jumping on it. We were staging, full staging. If it's a vacant home, we'll go in and stage every room, no problems at all. Showings, becoming less restricted with, an increasing number of people being in the home. During the lockdown phase, there were some towns that were even preventing any showings happening whatsoever. I'm not sure that they could have done that legally, but anyway, we're not even going to get into that. But now with a vacant home, it is a lot easier to show the home. If it's an occupied home, this is going to be a progressive comfort easing, if you like. And we are seeing this already because, again, the market kicked back into gear with buyers in about the beginning of May, and we're now 2 months further down. But we're starting to see contractors being a lot more willing to go into a home and do some work. It depends on the owners, the sellers, but we are starting to see starting to be a lot more comfortable, because the contractors are very, very cognizant of the fact that, you know, people are a little concerned still. So they're being very socially responsible, masks and, you know, all of that sort of stuff. We are progressively more willing to fully stage occupied homes. We just ask that the seller actually leave the home for the day. We just did one today where the sellers left at 8 o'clock in the morning. We turned up, we staged, we did, and we've done all the digital assets. I keep sort of saying virtual digital. We did all the digital assets, which is the 3D tour, the video, all of that. And then when we finished, the seller then came home. So, you know, we're a lot more comfortable doing that. And again, showings progressively less restricted. Sellers pretty well know that they need to leave the home when, you know, a buyer is coming in, and that they shouldn't come home early when there's buyers still in the home, because it's all about making the buyers feel comfortable being in the home. And if there's strangers around, they're not going to feel comfortable. So, you know, that's sort of key with that. So let's talk about preparation. Before we get on to preparation, and preparation is, what we mean by preparation is what we would recommend you do to your home to have it, oh, wow, the buyers walk in the door and, okay, this could really work for us. Before we get into preparation, and I'll let Marcus talk about this one in a sec, because...
Me? Thought I was going to get the evening off.
No.
No? Okay.
It's important to talk about, with preparation, is your home a tear down, or is it something that we should do some work to? Over to you. So give a little bit of a talk about what
caught me off guard now.
Yeah, but that's okay. I'm your wife, I'm allowed to do that.
Okay, there you go. So, is my home a teardown? It's a question we get asked quite a lot, as you can imagine, specifically here in Lexington, but not just in Lexington, in other towns too. There's a lot of new construction that goes on in the town, and given that there's almost no free land, there's no land without any building on it, in order to build a new construction, you have to tear an existing home down. So, first question that comes into people's minds is my home a teardown? The true definition of is my home a teardown is yes, it is, if the land value exceeds what a home buyer would pay for that home. And the interesting thing here is, if you remember way back about 15 slides ago, I showed you the demographic slide, and there was that lower orange yellow bar, which were the first-time home buyers. Many of the homes that the developers are looking at to tear down are ideal for those first-time home buyers. And so the question, whether land value is greater than the home buyer value, there are lots of home buyers at that 5, 6, 7, 800,000 price point. Remember, the average price in Arlington, single family, is 800,000. So there are lots of buyers at those lower price points. And so this equation is rarely true. Sometimes it is, but it's rarely the case. And so in most cases, the majority of cases, a home seller would be much better off and would get more money if they sold to a home buyer, first-time home buyer, specifically, than if they actually sold to a developer. So this equation is really the right way around, if you like. So the first question you should ask yourselves, is my home a teardown? Second question, I should say, is who's telling you it's a teardown?
Okay.
Good. My wife's in control. Perfect. What more could be better? What could be better?
I'll let you.
No. I know what slide's coming next, so that's okay. So who's telling you it's a teardown? Well, the first people who are telling you it's a teardown, of course, are the builders, right? No surprise there. It's in their best interest to tell you that they will pay top dollar. If they're not competing, why would they do that? So it's kind of obvious that the builders, when they come in and say, I think your home is a teardown, they're saying that because If they can convince you that it is, they can maximize their profit. They're in the business of building homes, and so that makes sense. So you kind of, when they come in and you tell you that, you kind of, your guard should already be up. But in many cases, what we're finding is agents are saying the same thing. They'll come in and say, well, I think your home is probably worth more to a developer than it is to a home buyer. And what I just said, that's really the case. And while I, because of that, why don't I introduce you to a builder that I know? So your guard should immediately come up, because here's what's going on in that situation. The agent is saying, you know what, I will forego the commission on selling this $700,000 home, let's say. Introduce you to a builder who will then list the home with the new construction home with that agent. And you could take a $700,000 tear down, if that's what it is, convert it to a $2.2 million new construction, and clearly the commission the agent will get is far more on a $2.2 million home than on a $700,000. So also, as an agent, if an agent were to tell you, I think your home is a tear down, there is a kind of, your guard should go up as that comes in. Let me give you a couple of examples, or one example anyway, of where a home is or is not a tear down. So the picture on the on the left there was the state before we saw the home. The homeowner here had gone out to a number of builders and said, how much will you give me for my home? The highest number that they got was $770,000. They came to us and said, do you think I can get more than 770? Yes, was the obvious answer, because even though you can see there's a lot of stuff in that house, actually, as the picture below shows you, on the right shows you, that's what it really looked like. We did very little. So actually, in this case, we spent about, the homeowner spent about $20,000. We said spend less. He wanted to spend more.
We kept wanting to spend
ended
money.
up with about $20,000.
We sort of said, no, stop. We're good.
That's far more than we would ordinarily, anticipate to spend. But that's how much was done on this home. Turns out that we listed that home for $839. So we are already $70,000 more than the builder value. Given that we're on the market at $839, right in the middle of that first-time home buyer, about the same average price as a home in Arlington, except this was a relatively large home in Lexington. 7 offers with the final price being $900,000. So that's a net increase of about $110,000 over what the builders would have paid. So for a home that you might look at it on the face of it and go, yes, I think it could be a tear down, the reality is it actually was not. And we have multiple examples of this that we can show you. So from these multiple stories that we've heard, we've been exposed to and we've actually seen, we came up with the buyer or builder scheme. How this works is, if somebody, a homeowner, thinks their home is a tear down, let's find out, shall we? Let's look at it and let's ask some developers how much they would pay for that home. At the same time, let's do a market analysis on that home, factoring in a small spend to do some tidying up. Now you've got 2 numbers and you can make the decision. If the builder price is $700,000, after smartening up, it'll sell for $710,000. Sure, sell it to a builder. It makes sense. Most of the time, those numbers are the difference between those numbers is much wider in favor of what a buyer would spend. So that's the kind of genesis of the buyer or builder scheme. So if you have any thought that your home might be a tear down, let us kind of roll this scheme in. So you get those 2 numbers and you can then make the decision which way you should go. Because information is power, and this is really what we're trying to do with this. So is your home a tear down?
Yeah, and the reason that we wanted to do that was because now we're going into the preparation phase of it. So if your home's not a tear down, which the majority are not tear downs, let me just say that, probably 95% of the homes that are torn down are really actually not tear downs. So, before you start planning to tear it down, let's just get in and let you know, is it or not? And if it's not, here's some of the, the things that we would recommend. Because what the buyers are looking for, and let me tell you what the highest return on investment task is, period, is paint. Paint, paint, paint. That's the highest return on investment that you can typically get. What we do when we come in is we're not going to come in and suggest something that might cost $2,000 to do and get you a $2,000 return, a $2,000 increase in sale price, because that's just busy work. We might suggest something that might cost $5,000 to do, but it might give you a $50,000 increase in sales price. So every home is different. And that's where we've come with, there's no one answer that fits all. Each house is different. One of the things that's important though is don't do major renovations. We're not coming in and saying, yeah, you need to replace the kitchen or you need to replace the bathroom. We're not even going to go anywhere near that, because that's not the best use of your money. The only time that we would think that a major renovation could be useful is if you're planning on staying in the home for 2, 3, 4 years before you're planning to sell. Then why not do that work and you get the benefit of it for that period of time that you're in the home. You will actually increase the sale price, but it's not just you've renovated the kitchen and you've gone straight away. So, don't do major renovations. The preparation, again, the highest return, we'll advise you on the highest return on investment tasks. If you're going to be painting, we'll help with colours as well. That's the most fun I have. We'll help you with colours. And we'll give you some advice on the priority order, because there's a different order of the things that you need to tackle first. And some of the things, well, only if, you've gotten to everything and you've got a bit more time, well, maybe this one could be helpful. But what we often do is tell people not to do this. Sometimes we'll go into a home and someone will say, well, I'm going to do X. And we say, no, don't do that. You're going to spend money and you're not going to increase the value of your home. So that's really important. Know where to spend your money and how to spend your money to get a maximum return on it when it's time to sell. But it can range from, the preparation services. We've got a whole lot of contractors that are really, really responsive and really well priced. We can just give you their names, or we can assist and meet with them at the home and help get quotes for the work to be done. We can help with coordinating them. There might be a couple of different contractors. Well, there's a couple of different orders that you need to do things. And we can help oversee the project. And, I think 5 Constitution, we were there every single day. That was a bit overkill that day, that home. We were there every single day checking on the contractors and things. So it doesn't necessarily take that many times, but we were wanting to make sure the contractor was doing the right thing. When it really comes down to it, you decide on the level of assistance that you want. We'll do as much as you want or as little as you want. As much as you...
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So here's some examples of some things. Wallpaper removal. This is just paint. This is a home where this was a before photo, and there was paint on the walls and all of this. There was wallpaper on the walls, and look at the difference just some fresh paint does. And we actually refinished the floors as well. A lot of us have fairly strong colours in rooms. Buyers don't respond well to strong colours. They want some softer pastel colours because they can start sort of imagining living in the home and what furniture they've got that will work in the home with softer pastels. Here's an example of a home. This was, the home was on the market with a different agent for 103 days. Didn't sell. We came in and they asked us to come and talk to them about selling, and I recommended that they paint the kitchen. because they're older oak cabinets, and they don't tend to appeal as much. But putting some paint on the cabinets, we didn't do anything with the countertops. They were still the granite countertops, still the same backsplash. We did switch out a couple of appliances, but this way we could market the home as a stainless steel granite kitchen. The buyers see in the photos that it's the nice white cabinets, and why white cabinets are in a bit at the moment is because that's what all the builders are putting into their new construction high-end homes, a white cabinetry. So when a buyer walks in, and we've had this happen so many times, where a buyer has walked in and they've looked at this and they've said, oh, is this a new kitchen? And we sort of, yeah, well, yeah, you know, it's had paint and a couple of appliances. But with doing that, and we only painted one other vanity cabinet, and we staged and we marketed, but we had competing offers and sold it for way over asking. So this was the before and this was the after. It makes a huge difference, paint. Here's another one where this home was, you know, it had your older oak cabinets again. It felt sort of dark and dingy and everything. And we just came in and put paint on the cabinets. We didn't do anything with the appliances. They were still the white appliances. I probably should have gotten the painters to paint the trim around the light fixture, but you know, that's okay. But anyway, this home had competing offers and sold for way over asking price, because it's fresh paint everywhere through the home. What a lot of folks don't realise is that tiles, you know, your tiles in your older bathrooms, whether they're orange tiles, bright blue tiles, red tiles, no, yellow tiles, black trim on them, pink tiles, they paint up beautifully. Benjamin Moore sell a product that's a bonding primer, and the bonding primer goes on the tiles first and then paint. And as you can see, this bathroom is exactly the same as this bathroom, but it's just got the tiles painted. And we took down the wallpaper as well, but we didn't do anything to the floors, nothing from an infrastructure perspective, no serious money spent, just paint. And it makes a huge difference. What a lot of folks don't realise too is that your laminate cabinets can be painted. So this is the same. If you notice here, you've got the blue tiles, painted, but here's the laminate counter, the laminate vanity that you can see here. Here, this bathroom looks really dated, and the buyers are going to walk in the door and say, we need to gut this bathroom, we've got to spend a lot of money on this. Okay, it's going to cost a lot more money than what we want to spend. Let's offer a lower price, because we need to keep the money. When they walk into this bathroom, oh, it's fresh and it's clean, and they just imagine that they can live in the home for the next 5 years without having to do anything to the bathroom, and in their own time they can do it. So the buyers will pay more money for something that's fresh, move-in ready. Here's an example of a home that was unsold for months and months. We came in and got them to paint the cabinets. So this is the before and here's the after, just with the, and that home's under agreement as of today. So that's really topical. But it makes a huge difference. Here's a story about this home. This one had been, this is the before, this had been on the market as a for sale by owner. Then it was on the market for over a year with another agent. Then it came off the market unsold, was a for sale by owner again, and then they listed with us. We came in and got them to take down those couple of straggly trees that were in the front, and we got them to paint the trim. That's all we did. Well, we did some things inside. Well, no, we didn't do much inside. We staged the home.
Staged it.
Yeah. But we got them to paint the trim outside because this had a sort of a dark purple trim with beige doors and blue, blue siding. It wasn't appealing. this was appealing. So we bought it on the market and we had competing offers and sold it for over asking. So again, did I mention paint does a huge amount? Here's a home where landscaping makes a huge difference as well. This was the home with lots and lots of trees at the front. It was very, very dark inside, and we got the seller to take down some of these big trees and we planted some new trees. Look, here's the side entry. You can't even see the side entry from there. But what this does is, remember we were saying the buyers would like new construction? Guess what you get with new construction? You get new plants, young plants. So when a buyer looks at this photo and they say new plants here, ooh, that feels like new construction. So they pay more money for the home. So we got competing offers with this one as well. Now let's get into staging. How is this different? But first off, let's talk a little bit about what staging is all about and why it's so important. These are a couple of sayings, phrases, quotes that we have found. 83% of buyers agents said a staged home helped buyers visualize the property as a future home. It helps the buyers visualize themselves living in the home. If there's no furniture in a home, they can't even imagine where they would put their sofa and how the home would feel. They just can't do that. 25% of buyers agents said potential buyers increased their offer between 1 and 5% on a staged home. That's quite significant. And 85% of homes surveyed were sold for 6 to 25% more than homes that were not staged. Staging is really, really powerful. So, do we stage? Yes. This is our truck. And there's our dog. And there's some of our team. As you can tell, it was winter when this was happening. We have our own truck to do the staging. So what
you might see it driving around. In fact, if you'd been up at 8 o'clock this morning, you would have seen me driving it.
And yesterday, or the day before.
Yeah, probably, yes.
So what is the staging services? At the moment, it's a virtual consultation. We have our staging coordinator is very, very good at getting on FaceTiming with someone and walking around their home with them and suggesting things and then coming up with a summary at the end of the meeting. But it's key to just depersonalize and declutter. That's, just start putting things away. We like to call it that it's advanced packing. You're going to have to pack all of this stuff anyway when you sell. Why not start now? Because the more decluttering you can do, the higher the price that you'll get. The buyers walk in and, oh, wow. It's really important. So it's performed by our in-house. It's performed by our in-house professional staging team.
You can't say it as well as me, so don't even try it. Don't even try to say it as good as I can.
We have our part-time stagers as well, and our own moving truck. And the staging furniture and accessories is based on need. If the home is a vacant home, we completely stage it, every single room. If it's a home that's occupied, which most homes are, we'll bring in accent pieces, we'll bring in soft furnishings, we'll bring in things that just help make the home pop a little bit more as to what the buyers are looking for.
You should say too that depending on the style of home, we have different style of furniture too.
Yeah.
With a more modern home, we'll bring in more modern furniture.
Yeah.
So that with an older home, you might bring in furniture that's more in keeping with the home itself.
Or a traditional home, we'll bring in, so we have probably, and this is the part that Marcus does not like to listen to.
I'm not listening to that.
We have about 13 or 14 housefuls of furniture that we use. That's in our warehouse. So we've got a lot, and we've got our own staging database and all of this sort of stuff. So it's a full-blown staging company. So we're progressively lifting restrictions on staging occupied homes. Some of our sellers have a second home, and they will go and stay in that second home while the home's on the market, and it makes it a lot easier for them. But when it's an occupied home, we just need the seller out for the day while we're coming in and staging, and then again when we come to destage. Now, the staging process, the house that we did today, it's 3,300 square feet. It's coming on the market this week in a couple of days. 15 Bartlett Ave. Not that I'm promoting it or anything. 15 Bartlett Ave.
I see it in the newspaper.
Yeah. When's the Colonial Times
I don't
coming
know.
in?
Okay. Probably this weekend. This weekend.
But anyway, it's a 3,300 square foot home. The sellers are still living there, but we took a truck, but it didn't have a whole lot in it, and we were out within 2 hours. And then we came in and did the virtual open house, and then we came in and did the digital assets and all of this sort of stuff. But and then the sellers were able to come home again. So it was over and done with by about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. So it creates an emotional response from the buyers. It's, that's the way that we get the highest price for the home. When a buyer walks in the door and looks around and says, "Oh, wow, I have to have this house." That's when they've emotionally connected with the home. That's when we get the highest price for them. Now, does it cost anything? No. We invest our resources to sell your home for more money. We do this because we know it's important, and we know it will give you the highest price, and we pay for it ourselves. We do not charge you anything for this. So we don't charge anything for this. You will, we invest our resources to do it. So here's some examples. Here, this is a photo. This was a before. It was 206 days on the market, unsold, with another agent, and you can't really tell that that's the dining room, can you? Can't really tell. But now you can. Putting some furniture in, you can tell that this is the dining room. So the buyers walk in and they, "Oh, look at this. Actually, our table would fit here." They sort of see a scale of furniture as well. But it didn't sell. We came in and did some minor updates. And when I say minor updates, we did some paint. We did replace some carpet on the hallway upstairs because it was a little bit stained, things like that. But we staged the whole home. We had competing offers for it. It was a house priced at $2,225,000, and we had competing offers and took it to 2,265. That was hard to say. Competing offers don't just happen in the sub $1 million range. It's all about pricing the home realistically and not overpricing it. So this is the same home. The living room doesn't look really very exciting. With some furniture in, it feels a lot more welcoming. Here's a new construction home. Here's the family room. And what Marcus was saying before, this home was built on the Studio McGee design style. So we investigated what the Studio McGee design style was, and we bought furniture that matched the design style. So, we had, I'd never really seen anyway.
What is that?
That is,
That's now in our staging inventory.
Yes,
So
it is.
if you need that in your home, just let us know.
they're pretty cool.
What
But
is it?
anyway,
It's a table, is it?
it's a table
Ah,
that's made up
okay.
of cut through the trunk
A
of
log.
the trunk of the tree. But anyway, that was in the Studio McGee design style.
Okay.
And the home, this was a home priced at $2,740, and we sold it in 3 weeks, and that was in September last year. So at that price point, they don't typically sell as quickly as that, and the home it popped. It was one of the best builders in town, and it popped. Who was Mark Barron's? I should say that Mark Barron's of Barron's Home Custom Homes. Here's another thing with this was, remember I was telling you about the home that had been a FSBO, then on the market, and then a FSBO again. This was a listing photo of the family room. Doesn't feel very exciting. And this is it with furniture in it. Makes a difference. But probably the key one in that same home is this was a series of 3 rooms, no furniture in it. But what would have happened here, this is the living room here, this is the dining room here, and the buyers would walk in and think, what's this room for? What do we do with this room? Because it wasn't a traditional layout. And that when the buyers are confused and can't figure out what they would do with a room, they move on. So what we did is we staged the front room as a living room. We staged the second room as a dining room. You know, it had the chandelier, so it was a dining room. And then we staged this room as a pre or post dinner drinks room. So we had a bar set up, some comfy chairs, and it sold competing offers. So, you know, it makes a huge difference. Now, Marcus, you're on again.
Finally. Marketing, now the fun stuff. So having done all that work, done the preparation, done the staging, then we've really got to kind of showcase the home to the maximum number of buyers. I mean, that's the key at this point. There's a lot to marketing, clearly. You know, photographs, videos, 3D tours, and so on. There's a lot to that, to those different pieces. And I'll take you through some aspects of this as we kind of go through. But, you know, does it really matter? Does it make sense to do? You know, and the key in this market is this, that having those digital virtual assets, called whichever way you put it, that's key to selling in this market, because you're really looking to get the maximum number of eyeballs, for want of a better word, on that home. And there really is a direct correlation between the number of people who view those virtual assets, the 3D tour, the video, the digital brochure, and the number of private showings. And having, you know, that direct correlation between virtual assets, private showings, the next correlation, which is the one you really care about, of course, is the correlation between private showings and offers. So you need to have all of those pieces in place, because today, if you don't have a compelling marketing story, potentially the buyers are going to go, I'm not really sure I want to go see that home. I don't see the value, if you like, in putting myself at risk in this environment, going into that home until I want to have a good look at it. And Danny has a story of a buyer who actually didn't feel comfortable going into a home. Danny went in there and did a virtual showing of that home with Zoom and so on, FaceTime.
A Zoom recording, yeah.
Right, and that was enough to say, okay, now I get this is a home I want to see. The reason we had to do that is the home the buyers were interested in didn't have a 3D tour, didn't have a video, very poor photographs. So that wasn't there, and it was only through the buyer's agent, in this case Danny, going in and doing that virtual tour of the home, if you will, where the buyers could see what it looked like. That's what got them in then to do a private showing.
And I have to say, they had dismissed the home. They weren't even going to have a look at it until I suggested that I can go in and do that. And we closed on the home yesterday. So
I guess it works.
It was yesterday.
It works. So, photography sells. No surprise. You know, here's some photographs. Be it a more contemporary home or an older home. You know, the people always ask, you know, is it going to be difficult to sell my older home? Actually, when you take the photographs of an older home, there's often that kind of richness to it, certainly in the colors. I mean, as you can see in this photograph here, this home looks the part. And so good photography matters. And let me show you some bad photography. So this picture is neither which are ours, I should say. This is the same kitchen. But if you look at that left-hand photograph, it looks kind of okay, I guess. But it really isn't, you know, it doesn't pop. Whereas, you know, a proper professional photograph of that same kitchen shows how big it is, shows the expanse of it. The shame in the first photograph is that kitchen's actually been staged.
Yeah.
It's not a messy kitchen. What's let that whole listing down, is the quality of the photography. And so photography really matters. That's kind of key. as well as photography, if you think about the way you view things today, you're very quick to go to YouTube. And so YouTube is key to getting eyeballs on that home. And we do multiple different videos of that home. For example, there you have sneak peek with Pseudo. He's asleep on the floor.
Sound asleep
on the floor in front of us. Thanks, Pseudo, for not listening to us. But at least he's not barking, telling us he wants something anyway. The idea behind this is social media. Let's get a cute video, if you excuse the word, on social media that will drive interest in the home. The key thing about getting that video on social media is that, guess what, if they like what they see, they share it with their friends, somebody along the line is going to go, I'm interested in that home. And when they click on that, lo and behold, that takes them through to the website. And I'll show you in a moment what our website looks like. So a video is kind of key. We do others as well. We do the traditional videos. I'll show you some examples actually. Why don't I just show you?
And what we've started doing now is the virtual open house. Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot. Let me show you. We'll show
Pseudo.
Show Pseudo, shall we? Here he is. So here's we've got Glenn's our marketing guy, put some great commentary on this. There's me pointing to Pseudo going through the front door. But it's kind of a cute, catchy video that gets attraction, gets eyeballs on social media. And guess what? When they get eyeballs on social media, they start sharing it with their friends and so on. So that's kind of key to getting traction on the home. There we go. So that's one type of video. There is a more traditional video, of course. This is a video, for example, of 3 Underwood, which is a new construction. Actually has grass at the moment.
Yes, it
I'm
does
sure
have
Glenn's
grass
taken
now.
another video. But here we're doing a more traditional view of the home where we take you through the home, kind of guided tour through the home that you see here. And while that's playing, I'm going to cheat because I'm going to get it. Why don't I do that same home?
It's up there.
There we go. I can show you this one in a minute. So that's the more traditional view of the home that you would expect. But there are lots of different videos. I'm going to bring that back, the video one up again. We do other kinds of videos too. Top 5 reasons you love this home. Now we do the virtual open house, of course, as well as a lifestyle video for the luxury properties. So lots of different videos aimed at different audiences, if you will. That's kind of key to bring that on. So that's kind of where we are with that. Let me go back to, if you'll excuse me a minute, go back to this. So all of those videos, unfortunately, we're the director. Now we kind of have an obvious way that we would like you to go through the home, but many people want to just kind of wander around the home whichever way they see fit. And so to do that, we have a 3D tour. And instead of me showing you, a screenshot of a 3D tour, let me show you a real 3D tour because it's much more interesting. Let me bring that kind of over. Here we go. So this actually is the home that we just showed you in the video, 3 Underwood, new construction we have on the market today. Put that in full screen mode. So now you're in control of this. You can go whichever direction you want to go. So let's go and take a look. This home has got a family room, casual dining, and then kitchen, a kind of open plan, common in new construction today. You can kind of see this, but you can go wherever you want to go. Maybe I want to go into the kitchen, or that's the mudroom there, I guess. Yeah, there's the access to the garage, the direction I want to go. And I can do it whenever I want to do it. If I want to do this at 2 o'clock in the morning because I can't sleep, because I was wondering, well, on the 3rd floor, was there another closet in that bedroom? How big were the closets in the master? All of those kind of questions. The 3D tour allows you to go and see that. Because you can go upstairs, you can go downstairs, you can go whatever direction you want. That's the basement access, for example. Here, we can go up the stairs if we so want. Maybe I'll just go up the stairs. Danny hates the fact that I always click on the circles.
Yeah, you don't need to.
I don't need to click on the circles, but there we go. I always do. I'm traditional, can I tell you? So let's go into the master bedroom. So there, we've gone into the master, we've gone up the stairs. But this is a key tool for the buyers to kind of traverse the home. Before COVID, this was the tool that was the cure to buyer's remorse. If you think previously, buyers had a relatively small amount of time in the home potentially. They might come to the open house on the Saturday and the Sunday. There were a lot of other people in the home. They were expected to make a fast decision. Now we have this tool, and it allowed them, after they'd seen it at the open house, to look closely at that open house. Now, fast forward to today, this is the tool to look at before you decide to make a private showing. So I can see everything around that home, and having done all of that, then I can do a private showing. I can also look at the floor plan view. Here's the bedroom level, for example. Here's the master bedroom here, the master bathroom, and so on. So there are lots of different views you can do of this home, but it really does give you you're in control in terms of how you would actually traverse that home. Let me get a full screen mode there. There you go. So now, having put all that together, guess what? I need a way to get all that information across to today's buyers. And today's buyers expect, actually, I think it's fair to say they demand to have a single place where they can get all the information about the home. So if excuse me while I scoot to the top, this is that venue. This is, for example, 3underwood.com. This is everything about that home in one single place. The way we structure it, here's the details of the home. There's a few more details here. And then what we do is we structure it narrative photographs, as like the video really, kind of how we expect you to navigate through that home if you were actually there, giving you a sense of what would it be like to live in that home through the narrative we have. So as you can see here, here's the exterior, and I'm going to guess it's going to go straight into the foyer, and so there's the living room and so on. So you can kind of traverse through that home. Here's that kitchen area I showed you previously, together with that kind of narrative about the home, master bedroom, and so on. There's the basement. As well as that, there's the 3D tour that we talked about. There's the property video that I showed you previously. And there's the brochure that Danny talked about that we no longer print. It's actually the same brochure that we used to print, but now we allow the users to go through this, print it off. This is just
one of the sites,
right.
Of the sites where it is.
It's in multiple places, but there's that brochure, information about the market, as well as where's the home in relation to all the key features in Lexington. And then we kind of finish that off with a map that shows where's the home in relation to the school system, and guess what, where's the home in relation to that ever important, although perhaps less important as we spend more time at home, perhaps working from home, public transport. I think it's important, and it will remain important clearly, as we move forward. So that's that single point there. So back to the slide deck. There's our website. Nope, sorry, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do that. There we go. Done it again. I wanted to do that. Floor plan. Sorry, I keep clicking on the. Let me do this. Excuse me a second. There we go. Floor plan. Social media. Social media is really important. You've done all the work. You've done the preparation. You've done the staging. You've done the marketing. Now let's get it out there, and we do it in one of two ways. Social media is a great mechanism to get it out to the maximum number of people. That's key. Targeted, yes, but broad. We're looking to go broad. Having done that, of course, you need to have the compelling photographs, otherwise it will skim past somebody's feed. You also have to have somewhere for them to go. So high quality photographs, click on this, guess what? It takes you through to the website. So social media is a great tool to get it across a targeted but broad set of users. Having done that, the next thing you want to do, of course, is target. So we have in our database everybody who's come to one of our open houses in the past, and so what we're looking
5, 6, 7 years, a long time.
What we're looking to do here is say, you know what, I'm bringing a home on the market at 800,000. You may have come to a home that was priced at $750, $850. Let's tell you about that home. So now we're targeting those users who have come to our open houses, have navigated to our website, looked at homes in that price point. We're looking to target those users to tell them, hey, you were interested in this home, and guess what? We're bringing another home on the market. So, we've gone broad with social media, we've gone targeted with email, but the key thing is you've got to have all of those digital pieces to it, the 3D tour, the video, and so on, to kind of back that up. You can't just have one without the other. So that's the marketing that we do on a home.
So the last component, and we're going to get on to buying in a second. We're taking a bit long, so I'm sorry about that. It's so hard to figure out how we change the presentation on a monthly basis because it's got to reflect what's going on at the moment. So, but that's hard to judge how long it's going to take. But excellence through teamwork is one of the top 5 key things that you need to do to maximize your home. So, maximize the sale price for your home. But effectively, what we have here, rather than belabor this too much, is the client's the center of our universe. Center of our universe, you've got the agent working with the client, you've got our listing coordinator working with the client, our closing coordinator when the home is under agreement, helping to work with the client. We've got our preparation services working with the client if they need it, staging working with the client, our marketing team working with the client. The client is the center of our universe, and when we bring a home on the market, we bring it on consistently and well. We're not skipping steps, we don't miss steps because we're scrambling, and everybody has their role in bringing a home on the market and bringing on the market to maximize the sales price for the home. And what our goal is, it's to sell your home for the most amount of money in the least amount of time with, you can't really say zero hassle, but the least amount of stress as possible. And this is, our aim is to be a relationship for life. It's, hopefully, not hopefully, our clients talk about us and refer us to friends of theirs and things like this, and that is a very powerful thing for us. Anyway, core values. This is important. What are the core values? These core values our core values are absolutely front and center. Anybody in our team, everybody in our team has these values. We don't tolerate people in our team that don't have these sorts of values. Integrity and ethical behavior, absolutely number 1. You will not find us doing anything wrong. We will always do right by our clients, absolutely 100% of the time. Education, not selling. This is why we're filling people in now on these sorts of things. It's, we don't know who you are that are watching, but it's so important for you to understand the key components that are involved to sell your home or to buy a home, or what's going on with COVID. You've got to get the information out there to people, and we're not going to do a hard sales job on you. An exceptional customer service. I mean, everyone says customer service, but we like to sort of say that with all of the key core team working with our client as being the center of the universe, it's exceptional customer service. Now, why is this important? When you're looking for an agent, you don't want Aunt Mary. You want a professional, someone that does this day in and day out. You don't want a 3Ps agent. And what a 3Ps agent is, it's a term in the industry. A 3Ps agent is someone who puts a sign out front, puts it in MLS, and then prays. You don't want a 3Ps agent. And one of the things that we thought would be useful for folks to know is that the NAR, which is the National Association of Realtors, commissioned a study, it's probably a couple of years ago, about what are the biggest threats to the real estate industry. And I'm going to read this now. The biggest threat to the real estate industry was masses of marginal agents destroy reputation. The real estate industry is saddled with a large number of part-time, untrained, unethical, and/or incompetent agents. This knowledge gap threatens the credibility of the industry. I mean, what else do you say? You don't want a 3Ps agent. You want someone that knows what they're doing and does it day in and day out. So let's give you some numbers though, since we're talking numbers. In Lexington, there's 282 agents. Last year, 86 of those agents listed a home, bought a home on the market for sale. Of those 86, only 18 listed more than 5 homes. Now, why is that important? So there are so many steps to bringing a home on the market and bringing a home on the market effectively and well and with all of the components that's necessary. Unless you're bringing home after home after home on the market, you haven't got the processes or the systems in place to do it and do it well. So someone that brings one home on the market every couple of years, they're not going to know who to contact for a floor plan. They're not going to know, the photographer to come and take photo. All of these sorts of things. It's so important to use someone that does it day in and day out. But let's look at the numbers. So this is in 2019. These are the top 10 agents in Lexington based on the volume, based on how many homes they bought on the market. You can see us here. We bought more homes on the market than anyone else in Lexington. And then you've got agent B, C, D. Okay, so these are the top 10 numbers. That's not the important thing. The important thing is the sale price to list price ratio. So these red bars or these red dots are what the sales price to list price ratios of these agents are. Now you can see ours with bringing 40 homes on the market, our sale price to list price ratio is 103%. Now you look at agent J, and we're not naming names, so deliberately aren't naming names, that's not what we're doing. They bought on 8 homes, but their sale price to list price ratio was 94%. Now, so okay, what does that mean? Well, if we're talking about $1 million sale price, and remember the average in Lexington is over 1.2, so this is a below average home, but it's easy to do the math. If you bought on $1 million home, we on average would have sold that home for $1,030,000 on average. Agent J on average for the same home would have gotten $940,000. It means a lot. It makes a difference, and it's so important to use the right agent. But I'll get off that because we don't sell ourselves. The agents in our team, there's myself and Marcus. We have Rachel, Wenjen, Corinne, Yuki, and Andrew Dixon. So some of us are long-time Lexington residents. Some of us have moved from other countries, and all of this sort of stuff. So we have a really broad, diverse background, and we can help anyone. It's your turn.
My turn?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm conscious of the time.
Okay, buying. That was selling. How about buying?
Yeah.
This is quite fast, but let me give you a kind of quick synopsis of what buying in 2020 is like in comparison to buying in 2019. Before I do that, I should give a shout out to the fact that we do a true buyers seminar. Yeah, and actually we're going to do that on Thursday, I think, same place. Actually probably the same place for me too. I don't know if Wenjen's doing it on Thursday with me. We're going to talk you through the market, and then we're going to go in detail through the buying process. So this is kind of a synopsis, and
we should always say that all of these that can be found on our blog page, on our website, mapropertiesonline.com, and you go to blogs and you can find the most recent buying seminar or online seminar on there. So
there we go. So Thursday, 6:30, buyer seminar, if you're interested in the detail. But let me give you a quick synopsis. So the when, you've seen this before. Buyer confidence returns is where we are. Buyers are confident, they're back in the market now. Not quite confident enough to go to open houses, but they're definitely there. So how about the how? So in terms of showing, it really isn't business as usual. You need to wear masks. Some homes require you to wear gloves, and so on. So standard protocol that we're all getting used to. It's fair to say. Most homes don't have open houses, as we've kind of belabored the point now. They are very different to what they were before, with groups, buyers going in one group at a time. You know, it can be quite problematic. You turn up at 2 o'clock, there may be 8 groups in front of you, and it will take a while to get.
It'll take 2 hours.
So just
to get you
be
in.
prepared for potentially a frustrating process. The solution to that is a private showing, and I would highly recommend that you do a private showing today, because the open houses can end up being something of a frustrating process. So private showing is really the way to go today. That may change moving forward, but that's where we are today. So private showing is much preferred. Look at the digital media, videos, the 3D tours. Unfortunately, it varies. There are more homes doing the 3D tours and the videos than there were in February and March this year. Certainly more than there were in 2019. But it's still not all of them, unfortunately. So, you know, you just have to live with what each individual agent is doing. I showed you everything we're doing. That is not necessarily the norm. That's everything. Many agents don't do as much as that. They may have a video that they stitch together, some photographs and so on.
Well, we did some numbers last year,
Oh,
2019.
that was last year.
Yeah.
Last year, there were, in terms of number.
4%.
Yes, this
4%
year
of the homes.
this year it's much higher than that.
Yeah, but it's dropping back to normal
Right,
again.
it will probably drop back to those
normal.
normal numbers that we saw
Which
previously.
is not many.
So that's where we are with the kind of digital piece of it. Most homes not allowing two private showings at one time. They're structuring it so that you get one group at a time. That group takes longer than they want to, than you want them to. There's some waiting there to be done. And also be prepared for perhaps an unusual or maybe even a scary situation. We had one situation where one of our agents in our team went into a home thinking it was empty, and actually it wasn't empty. It was full. All the bedrooms were full of kids in there, and it was okay. I'm not really expecting this, not really anticipating this. So be kind of go with the flow to some extent, but be prepared for those scary situations to arise. Hopefully not very often.
But if you're not comfortable with them, it's easy to solve. You just leave the house.
Yeah, of course. Yes, of course. Inspections are a little bit different too. Some inspectors are not allowing the buyer to attend. Some inspectors are not allowing the agent to attend too. They're just going in on their own and they're doing FaceTime. Some inspectors requiring the house to be vacant for a couple of weeks before. So it really isn't the inspections we're used to. And I think this is a real shame, I have to say, because if you think about the inspection, yes, it's to find what's wrong with the home, but it's also an opportunity for you, the buyer, to actually understand the systems of the home. The inspector will inevitably tell you how to replace the filter in the AC unit, for example. All of those kind of nuances are missed, unfortunately, if you're not going through the inspection with the inspector. You get the report at the end of the day, but there's a lot that's missing from that. And that's disappointing, I think. And so, you do need to have kind of confidence in that extended team that, if the inspector goes in and he FaceTimes you or you read the report, that what he's giving you is accurate. You've got to kind of trust that. I think this is a real shame. I do hope that we get back to inspections as normal. This is they're not all this way. I've had with buyers have gone in there with the inspector, but perhaps just one party instead of two. I don't really. If it's a case of only two people, let the two buyers go in. I'll take a step back. But just be prepared for that situation. I do hope this gets back to normal moving forward, because I do think there's a lot missing from that inspection. In terms of financing, I talked a little bit about this before in terms of the banks tightening. Remember, what the banks are doing here is they're hedging against a downturn in the housing market. As that becomes less likely, it's certainly here in Massachusetts, that tightening may begin to loosen a little bit. We'll see. The one big one here that we're coming across even right now is drive-by appraisals, where the appraiser is not going into the home. And I wrote here potential for lower appraisals. Actually, we've seen a reality of lower appraisals too, because of that drive-by, not understanding how many people, how many offers were put into the home, how many people came to the open house, not seeing the home, just going by the pictures that are in multiple listing service, for example. So there's a lot that's missing from a drive-by versus an in-person appraisal, and that is leading to some lower appraisals. So be cautious, be warned about that. That situation is arising. There's a heads up here. As you bid on a home in multiple offer situation, that it may well be that home will not appraise for what you've offered, even though there were 7 other people who wanted that home and wrote offers on that home. It may well be that the appraiser doesn't understand that, has never been told that, and therefore it comes in lower. So that's less of a potential, more perhaps of the reality. A lot more detail in the buyer seminar. We're going to do that on Thursday with Wenjen. There's a couple more on our website too, so there's a lot of information on there as well. Much more detail about the buying process. So if you're looking, how does the buying process work in general as well as in this environment, I would highly recommend you listen to the buyer seminar on Thursday. All right, so just to finish up then, virtual selling and buying. So what does it mean? In terms of the selling process, lots of virtual consultations, be it staging. There's a lot of FaceTime and Zoom going on right now. Or perhaps somebody will come and visit, but they'll have masks and gloves and so on. So I think most people are used to that now. Maybe a virtual market analysis. You'll get a report at the end of the day and not explained to you. So, that's how that works. Electronic signatures. As Danny mentioned before, we have a listing dashboard. I've got some screenshots here. We're about to roll this one out. What this shows you, for example, in one screenshot here, give me all the dates of when key activities are happening on the home as we're coming on the market. The second screenshot is I'm on the market. How many views am I getting of the 3D tour? How many views are we getting of the video? You can see all of that in real time. It gives you a key understanding of what actually is going on.
And Marcus was saying that there's an app coming out for that. Yes, but it's currently, there's a page on our website, the private page on our website, we've been doing this for about 2 years. So that information's there where the sellers can see it, but we have an app that is in the last stages of being approved, and then the app will replace the website, the web page,
right.
The hidden web page.
Other things, showing restrictions. Showings are restricted if you're selling your home. Be respected for that. I mean, are you comfortable having multiple people in your home while you're living there? Many people have decided they want to go away for the weekend. We used to recommend that previously as well. And then everything's recorded at the registry. No surprise there. Similarly for the buying, again, virtual consultation. I have to say, you doing a virtual consultation with a buyer is actually, in some respects, as good as, if not better, that you're doing it in person. Not looking at a home, that's different. But actually before, you can go back and forth between screens. You can show them what's happening in a market. You can go to a website, see the statistics on the website, explaining what's happening to the market. Virtual consultation for a buyer, I find that very effective, I have to say, using Zoom. More effective than sitting down where you're kind of trying to show them things. So that's working out quite well from my perspective anyway. But our perspective. Digital marketing, expect, hopefully, not all the case, of course, and looking at the home virtually before you actually go there. That's their electronic signatures. I've talked about the inspectors and so on. And guess what? We have a buying dashboard too. So that's there as well. So, do you want to finish off with, does it work?
Yes, does it work?
There we go.
So this is the last slide. So you're just about done.
Yep.
So yeah, it works. We're the #1 Lexington-based agents. Our average days on the market last year was 20 days on the market. It might be a little bit longer this year, but we're in pretty strange years. The sale price to list price ratio, again, it was 103 last year. Not sure what it's going to be next year because of the strange year. and 67 homes bought and sold. I think that was 42 listings and 25 buys. Anyway, it doesn't really matter the number, but we know what we're doing from a team perspective, whether it's be listing or buying, and you know, this is part of giving you the information and letting you know what's going on, and so that you can make smart decisions. Because smart decisions, it can where our focus is that someone buying or selling their home is the most expensive asset that they typically own, and you got to do, you know, as an agent, you got to do the right thing by that. You've got to help the financial well-being of people. That's we don't take that lightly. We don't take that lightly.
That's true. So there we go.
So anyway, Marcus tells me that I keep rambling at the end.
You do at the end. You always do. So I'm gonna fade you out any minute now. I have control. I love that. I have control.
So we're going to go find some dinner.
That's
I hope
true.
you've all enjoyed a martini or something like that while you've been watching us. And look, if you've got any questions about anything, just give us a call.
Feel free to reach out to us.
We'd love to help. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Buyer seminar. No, I'm going to one more pitch for the buyer seminar on Thursday. With that, I'm going to stop. So with that, we'll say goodbye. Bye.
Bye.